I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver, January 20th, 2024. I am here with CEO Chris Herald of Solitario Resources Corp. Chris, welcome to Vancouver.
Thanks for inviting me, John. It's a pleasure to be here again. This is second year.
Yes.
It's a great conference last year and even better this year.
Yes, you were here last year, and we were really pumped about the Golden Crest project in South Dakota, which is on the sort of western part of the Black Hills. And you were hoping to be drilling by May when the weather lets you in there. And you're still not drilling. You are partly through the permitting cycle. Tell us how this U.S. Forest Service permitting cycle works and where we are in the cycle and when you hope to be able to start drilling Golden Crest.
Yeah, thanks. And a great question. It's a question that, our shareholders are keenly interested in. When are we going to be drilling here? We really thought we'd be drilling in the summer of last year. And the process, we go through what's called a NEPA process, working with the Forest Service, that addresses any potential environmental issues that our drilling program may develop or encounter. And so that process went quite well during the first 12 months. And we were getting ready to, actually, the Forest Service was getting ready, as we understand it, to issue the draft EA. And there was kind of a black swan event in the Black Hills where another company working about 25 miles away from us developed some fairly serious community resistance to a drilling program they had that could have impacted part of the water supply of Rapid City. And so that became a kind of a hot button issue in the Black Hills. The Forest Service backed off all the permitting progress for everybody, including ourselves. And that cost us about 5 months in 2023. So that was a disappointment. It wasn't specific to our project, but we got kind of caught up in the fire there. We went back on track in the fall of this year. The draft EA was published. And then in early December, we got a very favorable ruling that our project had a finding of no significant impacts, which is a very key decision by the Forest Service.
This is what everybody calls a FONSI?
A FONSI. This is a FONSI. So a finding of no significant impacts. Now we're in what's called the objection period. So anybody in the public can look at our program, look at the EA, see if there's anything the Forest Service missed in the EA. And if there are, they can object. And they can object over anything. And there'll be objections. We know that every project in the United States has objections. We think the Forest Service will sustain their document. It's a very good document. It's very detailed, well thought out. And they covered really every topic that should have been covered for our activities. So that period of the objection period ends in the next week or two, I believe. And then the Forest Service responds to any of the objections they see. We're hopeful. We'll see how it turns out. We're hopeful that the document prevails, the finding of no significant impacts. That's what we think will happen because there aren't any significant impacts that we have planned. And then we'd be able to drill. Our target date this year is around June 1st.
Okay, so you're kind of like a passive bystander, all that. My understanding is you write the checks, they do all these special surveys and stuff. It's the U.S. Forest Service Department people who do all this work, and it's their conclusion, not yours. Mm-hmm. So with this objection period, it's really them on trial with the public, and they have to defend themselves, and you just get to sit there on the sidelines and hope that they did a good job and overcome whatever the objections are.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We are like every project, and this is not different than any other drilling project. It's the Forest Service job to protect their forest.
Mhm.
And their review, that's what they're doing. They have a public trust that mandates that undue, degradation can't happen on their forests through, any activity really. There's always, in logging or mining or exploration or tourists, there's always impacts. It just can't be too significant.
Mhm.
So anyway, yes, we pay the bills. They do the work, and a lot of their work is done by third-party environmental consulting firms
Okay.
that they control, that we don't control. They do. So it's their work, and they'll defend it.
Now, this area of Golden Crest, it's the western half of the whole Black Hills area. All the 90 million ounces are in the eastern half. That's very busy and all that. And I look at Google Earth, and there's no civilization, nothing in this area, all the way to the Wyoming border. But you've reported, you've taken, I don't know how many samples, surface sampling, while you're waiting for a drill permit. And I understand that you've almost got a Christmas tree over this large area of surface values for gold. How is it possible that in the past 100 years, when this incredible Homestake region, was a giant gold mining camp, that you, a little junior, is starting to find gold outcropping at surface, and nobody else ever found it before? That makes no sense.
We still shake our head on that, John. It's hard to explain because there's an old adage in the gold or mining business in general. Where do you find new gold mines? Usually right next to old gold mines, and that's been proven over and over again. And here, Homestake represented the single largest gold deposit in the United States ever. It was mined for 120 years. I think there's a couple reasons it wasn't found. One is there's two ages of mineralization in the Black Hills region. There's the old Precambrian mineralization, which is the Homestake mine, and there's the younger tertiary mineralization, which is the Wharf mine and the Gilt Edge mine and the mines that surround it.
So roughly like 2 billion years for the Homestake deposit,
And 50 million.
Okay.
Yeah, 50 million for the tertiary. Well, Homestake, the biggest deposit was Homestake by a fair margin. They were just fixated that that's where they should look. And so our property really doesn't have old rocks exposed at surface. They're down below us about 300 or 400 meters. But on top, we have these carbonate rocks that have been affected by tertiary age gold mineralization. So you had a mindset at Homestake that don't go anywhere. If you can't find Precambrian rocks on the surface, don't go looking. There was still a few old prospectors 120 years ago that went around to these areas, including our property. In the main Homestake trend, there's something like 150,000 prospect pits over a 60-mile long trend. On our property, there's about a dozen. And
how do you know that?
we have really detailed satellite imaging called LIDAR.
Okay.
And it'll see a little prospect 3 feet in diameter.
Wow.
It's that good. And so we've counted all these and we've plotted them on maps. And we've gone to the prospects that are on our property, and most of them had good gold in them. Those half dozen to dozen prospects had good gold. What I think they didn't return, the old prospectors, because in the old days, they didn't have enough money to assay for gold. So what they did, if they found an interesting rock, they ground it up and they panned it. And they looked for little gold color in the pan. The gold that occurs on our property is similar to Carlin Trend. It's microcrystalline. You can't see it. We have crushed 100-gram rocks containing 100 grams, crushed it, panned it, and we can't find one speck of gold. And I think that's another reason that it's never been discovered. And finally, it's covered by forest and grass, not a lot of soil and things, but enough to conceal. We only have maybe 1 or 2% actual outcrops of rock, and that makes the exploration difficult. So we started by finding most of our early prospects were found in roads because they were logging roads, and they cleared off the soil, and they kicked up some of the bedrock, and in places it was right over gold mineralization.
So was it like you would see altered rock and say, let's take a sample, and it looks like garbage, just, rusty whatever rock, and all of a sudden it's running assays?
Yeah. It'd look a little different than your normal barren rock that doesn't have gold. And for instance, our first significant discovery, it was a trench that was 36 meters of 17 grams right in a Jeep road. And I don't mean to the side of it, right in the middle. And then we did a perpendicular trench to that, and we had 60 meters of 8.5 gram. And literally there had to have been thousands of tourists that have driven over that over the last 40 or 50 years. So it's remarkable that it hasn't been discovered, but we're having fun with it.
I hope it's only thousands of tourists, not millions of tourists. Because this area is remote. There's nothing there, which is, once you get your permits in that, it's not like you're impacting some reservoir with cottages around it and homes or anything. There's nothing there in this area.
It's pretty much 100% all U.S. forests, and all the areas we're working in has been clear cut. So it's been, significantly impacted already by logging. So our work is really on top of previous disturbance. And we're going to be required to actually do a better job of reclamation than the logging companies. So any area that we do work in, it's actually going to look better than when we started.
Now, since you started the permitting process back in early 2022, you've now had 2 seasons of more surface sampling, expanding the footprint of mineralization. You're starting to see the limits of it, where it peters out. Once you get this plan of operations approved, how much drilling can you do, and how constrained is it? And what about these other areas that you have identified since in the past 2 years since you started the first plan of operations application?
Yeah. Well, our first plan of operations, I think there's 23, 24 drill sites that we've applied to be able to drill on. And from any one of those drill sites, we're able to drill up to 5 holes if need be. We'll start off with 1. And of those 25 holes in the first year or 2, we won't drill set up on all of them. My guess is the first year we'll probably identify 10 or 12 of the most prospective drill sites, drill those. If we are successful, we'll probably drill more than 1 hole off the ones that we're successful on. And then this is a process, it's exploration. And so we're always looking for new things. We have found new things. So in the future, there'll be additional permitting efforts on our part. I think we'll follow the same formula. We'll propose drill sites that are already on disturbed land. It's very important from our viewpoint at this point in exploration that we keep surface impacts to an absolute minimum, and we're doing that. So we see in the future additional permitting that we'll have to do for more drilling. But first we want to get our Golden Crest permit that's almost to the finish line. We really want to get that done.
Now, the wharf system, which is hosted in Paleozoics and has this tertiary hydrothermal event that brought the gold, and the prevailing theory is that the much older 2 billion year old basement gold, which was laid down back then by who knows what processes, a lot of it has been harvested, remobilized, and become part of the wharf system that's hosted by the younger carbonates. And you have an even younger horizon on top. And so whatever hydrothermal system happened in the tertiary, it made it through that horizon too. It may have existed over in the wharf area too, but been eroded away. But what reason do you have that underlying the Golden Crest area, there may also be these Precambrian banded iron formation rocks that got gold mineralized 2 billion years ago, that what you're seeing at surface could also have harvested.
Yeah, that's you described the setting perfectly. 2 ages of mineralization, and the first one really set the stage for the second one. The first one, we had a large piece of the Earth's crust that was very gold enriched, substantially. And that's what makes these supergiant gold districts, are generally older rocks that are very gold enriched. Homestake's one of them. So what we see at Golden Crest, there's actually been 3 drill holes on our property drilled by Homestake back 40 years ago. Those 3 holes, 2 of them hit, according to their logs, Homestake formation. And it's the only place that we know of that Homestake has found significant amount of Homestake formation outside of their main district. That's a really important data point, because anywhere else you go, even if it's Precambrian in the southern part of the Black Hills, it's not exactly an equivalent Homestake formation. So we see a tie in the basement from the old Homestake district to right in the middle of our claim block. We're quite geophysically, we think we see it. We think we see a gravity high that represents gold-enriched Homestake formation, and it explains really the distribution of gold at surface on our project. It fits so well, and so we're very excited not only about the carbonate potential there, which we think is the easier target to find initially, but with time, I think we'll be successful finding a Homestake deposit. They're much more difficult to find because they tend to be vertical and complex in geometry, whereas the tertiary mineralization tends to be well organized, laterally continuous, and easier to find with the drill hole.
So based on where Homestake randomly decided to spot these geological scout holes just to see what's going on in the rock column, they obviously didn't find any gold in the Precambrian basement that they did penetrate. Is that a negative for that possibility that the basement is gold mineralized from 2 billion years ago, or is the location such that, well, they just got unlucky in picking where they were, that it isn't like they've drilled right underneath where you're now finding these Christmas trees of gold at surface?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's not negative at all, because these Homestake deposits, they tend to be vertical and like I said, complex. So when you only have a couple holes that you're going for, it is very difficult to hit that target without any other information. And so I think with time, when we drill a hole, we'll always drill into the Precambrian, and we're going to be able to build a database. And we're going to be able to put a story together on the Precambrian and the Homestake. And so with time, I think we'll be successful at finding a Homestake deposit. Not the first couple of years, for sure. Mm-hmm. But we can see the distribution of the Precambrian geology, and that'll be the key.
And the Florida Canyon project in Peru, where you have a carried interest, Nexa the operator. A year ago, Nexa was trying to figure out, it's got enough work to put into production what it has been working on for the past 15 years. And the hope was that they might make a decision as to when to start either developing this, but they were thinking of looking at drilling some of these other parts just to see what the scale potential is for the longevity of whatever it is they develop. Where does that stand 1 year later?
Yeah, we got, they had planned to have a modest drilling program in 2023. They didn't get their permits. It's always about permitting and exploration. They didn't get their permits till towards the end of the field season, and they did drill 2 holes. They were unsuccessful in, and these were pretty big step-out holes. They were unsuccessful in finding new mineralization. But now they have a much larger area permitted. They received those permits quite recently. They're undergoing budget approvals right now. We hope within a week or two that we'll get some news out of NYSE. We hope it's good news, a substantial drilling program. I think their goal is twofold here. One is we've got about a half a dozen really good surface mineralized areas that look just like what we've drilled that's never had a drill hole in it. So they want to test some of these in the next round of drilling. They also want to look at extensions of the known mineralization. This is what's called a Mississippi Valley type of zinc deposit. And Mississippi valleys tend to almost always be very large districts with multiple deposits because they develop in a basin, sedimentary basin. It's not like a single event little thing happening. It's a big carbonate basin, and it's water fluid movement that creates these zinc deposits. And we see the distribution of our surface zinc along major structures. So I think what NYSE would like to see in the next drilling program is a confirmation that this is a much larger district. We certainly see it on the surface. Let's get some confirmation with drill hole. And then what they have done, there's been well over $80 million spent on this project. It has 530 some drill holes. It is a real strong resource. It's very high grade, one of the highest grade undeveloped zinc deposits in the world, and it has very good metallurgy. And most zinc deposits have rather poor metallurgy. They tend to be dirty, and smelters don't like them too well. This is a very clean concentrate. Environmentally, it's every smelter in the world would want to treat it, and you recover most of your zinc. So there's a lot of good things going for the Florida Canyon zinc deposit.
And one final question. You're a 50-50 partner with Teck on the Lick project in Alaska, and there you have to chip in 50% of anything, unlike the Florida Canyon where you have a 30% carried. So that's no dilution risk for you at all. This past year, you did some work with Teck on Lick, but you already know what it is. It's an open pitable system with a lower zinc lead grade than Red Dog. What needs to happen for Lick to actually become a development candidate?
I think it's a little bit of time passing, and the Lick deposit sits about 11 miles from the Red Dog deposit. And, one of the things I saw recently was the forecast of zinc production at Red Dog over the next 4 years. And for me, it was a little bit shocking. Teck published out to 27 their zinc forecast for Red Dog, and it's declining every year from 2024 to 2027. I don't know what happens beyond 2027, but the amount of zinc that's going to be produced is around 30% less than what it was last year. And so that's a big hit on the production. And the thing that Lick compared to Red Dog in the past was Lick was lower grade than Red Dog. Red Dog was 14, 15%, and Lick was like 11 or 12%. And so now with this declining production profile, it has to be because of grade. Lick is going to be compared quite favorably now in terms of the grade between Red Dog and Lick. And we see, although there's no plans at this time, I've got to emphasize that, but we see the Lick deposit becoming an important satellite deposit that could be mined and trucked to their Red Dog facilities quite easily. So I think that's a real good possibility in the future. It's not next year, it's not in 5 years, but certainly I think we could be heading there within a few years in terms of feasibility.
So you may end up being able to monetize it at some point over the next few years.
There could be a chance of monetization of the Lick asset. Yeah.
Okay. I've been speaking with Chris Herald of Solitario Resources in Vancouver. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, John.